me a card, and I love crafting for the crafter, and that is you. Thank you so very much for joining me. So today I want to play around with this. Do you know what this is? This is a stem from grapes, actually a grape stem. And I thought that it would be very fun to use this as a spooky tree on a card. I saw that it had potential to become a spooky tree, so join me as I convert this into a Halloween card. Okay, so first I bring in some black acrylic paint, and this unfortunately was a little dry, but it still had some humidity in it. Therefore, it was not completely dry. It absolutely needed more moisture to it, so I just blobbed on a bit on my mat and I added some water to it. And with a brush, I went ahead and I mixed the water in the paint, and this reactivated the paint and made it good for use. So if you have some acrylic paint that has gone bad, don't throw it away. As long as it has some humidity to it, you could still reactivate it and use it. But once it dries completely, it is very hard to make that usable again. I would say it's almost impossible. So anyways, I just go ahead and I grab some of this black acrylic paint and I brush it onto this grape stem until it is all nicely covered. I let it dry for about 3 hours, and you can see here it is nice and dry. I press on it to see if it could work on a card, and it looks like it could lie flat enough to be sent in a card, and it is completely dry right now. Okay, so I thought that this metal die would be really cute for cutting out a fence to go with this tree. So I am going to go ahead and cut it out 2 times. And I cut it out twice just for it to be long enough for the width of my card. So first I go ahead and I bring in my first layer here, and I kind of eyeball and I sketch a little hill. That is where my tree is going to be sitting on. And bringing in some white cardstock, I go ahead and I mimic this same sketch onto this cardstock so that I could cut it out and color it. So the way I'm going to be adding some color to this hill is just by using a brush, and this is a blending brush, very similar to a makeup brush. They actually work exactly the same. I go ahead and I start with some Mowed lawn, and this is regular distress ink. Grabbing this brush, which actually this one is a makeup brush, I go ahead and I add this color onto this piece of cardstock that is going to be my hill. And this blending brush, I believe I got it at the Dollar Tree, and it's the same as you would use for makeup. To add a darker look to it, I go ahead and I also add some vintage photo. This is also regular distress ink. So for the background where this hill is going to be placed on, I go ahead and I grab Fossilized Amber, Villainous Potion, and Black Soot. Now these inks are Oxide inks, and these are perfect for blending. They're very creamy and allow for you to create pieces where it is hard to see where one color ends and one starts. I think they're the perfect inks for blending. I go ahead and I trim it down to be 1/4 of an inch smaller than my card base. I go ahead and I glue my hill. Now bringing in my spooky tree, I go ahead and I add some hot glue, which is silicone glue, onto it, and I place it on my first layer. And I press on it, still kind of unsure that it's going to fit flat in an envelope, and it will. So I want my fence to be a little spooky, also have some distress. So I go ahead and with some vintage photo and a blending tool, I go ahead and I distress it. So I go ahead and I make one fence longer just by stacking the other one on top of it. I wanted to have a darker feel, so I go ahead and I grab some black soot and I also blend it over the fence. So I want this fence to be popped up. So grabbing some foam tape, I go ahead and I place it on top of some wax paper. And this is just paper that I got from a label. After I took the label off, this nice piece of wax paper was left. And you could use any that you might have on hand. You could even possibly use the backing of stickers, a sticker sheet. After you're done with the stickers, just use that backing and you put the foam adhesive on top of it and you cut it with your scissors. And your scissors will be nice and clean because the gooiness will not stick to them as you're cutting. Wax paper, it acts like a shield. So I go ahead and I add this foam adhesive to the back of the fence. And then I go in with my hot glue gun and I stick it onto my card. And I had the afterthought of embossing the sentiment onto my card after the tree is already set on here. So this was very risky of me to do once the tree was already stuck on the card, but that's the vision I had and that's what I wanted to do at that time. So I just go ahead and I apply some anti-static powder onto where I'm going to be stamping my sentiment. Then I go ahead and taking my stamp, I stamp it using some Versamark ink, which is perfect for heat embossing. And I was extremely lucky that this stamped straight and I was able to use it. So this completed my first layer. What I have in mind for my card base, this is where this first layer is going to be sitting on, is that I want that kind of shiny feel that the acrylic paint gave the tree. So a way to achieve that is that I am going to go ahead and apply some black embossing powder onto the edges of my card base. And again, bringing in the Versamark ink, I go around the card base, I apply the black embossing powder, and I heat it to melt it away. And this gives a beautiful shiny look to it. And because embossing powder, when it melts, it turns like a plastic-like, it is non-porous. I glue on my first layer using some multimedia glue so that it could grab on to this non-porous surface. And this is my card. I love how it came out. It's so fun. And I love that I was able to use something that I would usually throw away in the trash, which is this grape stem. Thank you so very much for joining me. I hope you get inspired. I hope you create and be happy. Please subscribe if you haven't already done so. Hit the notification bell, like, and comment. All these things motivate me to bring you more crafty content. Thank you so very much, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Jeez, you are so difficult. You better not splatter on me.